As an avid lover of shiny things, making my own foiled stickers has become one of my favorite ways to personalize my journals. And today I'm going to show you exactly how I do it. Hi, I'm Erin, and I'm definitely not an expert when it comes to my Cricut, but I know my way around well enough. The stickers we're making today I actually used in my May bullet journal setup, so if you want to see how it all came together, you can check that video out here. But I also used this method before in my mystery journal in a couple of different themes, so I've tried it a few times and this seems to be what works. This method of making foiled stickers does require a Cricut. I have the Cricut Explore 3, and you'll also need the Cricut Foil Transfer Kit. This one specifically indicates on the packaging that you can use it with the Cricut Maker and Explore ranges. There is a transfer kit for the Joy and Joy Extra, but it's different to this one, so just make sure you grab the right one. The foil transfer kit does come with some samples of different colors of foil, so you can get started with that straight away. But if you're doing a larger project, I would recommend investing in the 12 by 12 inch sheets instead. Of course, you'll also need whatever your preferred style of sticker paper is. I use the matte sticker paper from Stash World and it's my favorite, but anything that you like will work. Now let's jump into Cricut Design Space, which is the software that speaks to the Cricut. We're going to start with some text stickers. I'm going to start with my May header. You can use the video chapters down below to fast forward to the section about graphics if you care more about that, but I'd recommend watching just the beginning of this so you know how to do the offset. Cricut comes with a bunch of fonts built in the Cricut font section you can see up here. They have all sorts of stuff, different kinds of styles. I don't have the Cricut Access subscription and I don't really want to pay for any of their assets, so you can jump into this little filter section here and choose just the free ones if you don't want to pay. I really like that if you've typed in the word that you're planning to make a sticker or whatever of with your Cricut, it will show you that word in all of the fonts so you can see what they look like. That's a really nice touch. But I'm not really vibing any of these fonts for this particular project, so I'm actually just going to use one from my computer that's already installed. In order to find those, you have to go up to System. Up here it's next to Cricut, and none of these fonts will cost you a cent because you've already got them installed on your computer. I'm going to go with this font. It's called A Auto Signature. It's a lovely kind of flowy handwriting script, and you can see when you have your text selected, it shows you the measurements of it in that green box. You can grab the handles and drag them to change the size of your lettering if you prefer. So I like to bring up the boxes at the top. I just set it to 6 centimeters wide. You sometimes can't see this if you have any of those side panels open, like shapes or images or text. Right now, Design Space thinks I want to cut this out, and I don't want to do that. I want to foil it. So we need to come up to this drop down, choose foil, and I'm going to set this one to bold. I actually don't recommend the bold setting for anything. I've decided after trial and error, particularly through this process, that the bold transfer tip just doesn't do a very good job. So I would recommend avoiding it, but you can try it out if you want. And I just wanted to zoom right in on the text here to show you. The foil tool doesn't actually do solid blocks. It only does outlines of things. So you can see there's some gaps in the middle of my letters there. I'm okay with that because this font has quite a narrow, fine line to it anyway. Some fonts unfortunately just won't work as well with the foil tool. So now I have my May text, but how do I turn it into a sticker? We need to click on Edit, and then we're going to go down to the Offset down under Effects. There's also a button called Sticker, but it doesn't give you the same kind of flexibility as the offset tool, so I prefer to use this one. I'm just going to bring the size of my offset down a little bit until I like how it looks around my May text, and then click Apply. Because the last thing we used was the foil setting, Cricut thinks we want that again, but we actually don't. This time we do want it to cut, so I'm going to come up to this drop down again and choose Basic Cut, and I'm going to be foiling these on white sticker paper, so I'll set the material color to white. Before we do the next step, I want to make some more text stickers, so I'm just going to duplicate my May heading so I can use it again, and now I'll select both the May text and the offset layer. I'm going to right click and come down the bottom to Attach. I want to attach these two layers together so the Cricut knows that it needs to foil in this spot and cut just outside of it. It's how it tells itself where everything is relative to everything else. Now I'm going to repeat this process for all of the other headings I need to make for this journal theme. Right now this text is way too big for what I actually want, but I'm just going to use it to get my headings down on the page, and I want these all to be the same size, so I'm going to change the size of all of them at the same time. Anticipating is my longest one here, and I'm going to use it as my marker. It's currently 12.63 centimeters, which is way too long. I'm going to bring that back down to 4 centimeters for the widest sticker. Because we made these from the duplicated May heading, Cricut already knows these are going to be foil, but I don't want them to be bold, so I'm going to set these down to fine. Once again, when we zoom in, you can see that this is just the outlines of the letters, it's not actually filling anything in, but once this is on the page in fine foil, because it's quite small, it's kind of just going to look like one line. I'm going to separate these a little bit so there's a bit of a gap around them and apply my offset just like we did earlier. I'm making this one really small, it's 0.141 centimeters, and again I need to change it from foil to a cut, change the material color to white, and then attach it to my goals heading. Let's do the exact same thing for the other headings too. You can do them all in one go if you like. Just select all of the text and then go to the offset button and add the offsets for all of them at the same time. But if you do it that way, Cricut Design Space will put all of your offsets on the same layer. So whatever spacing you had between your words at the time that you added that offset is how it's going to stay. You can't move things around as flexibly. So I like to do it this way even though it takes a bit longer. I still have more headers to make, so I'm going to duplicate my working on text again. I actually need to detach it to do that. I got a bit ahead of myself. If you just want to make text stickers, you can skip ahead with the chapters down below now. But if you wanted to make functional stickers for every day of a month, for instance, for weekly spreads or similar, I'd actually recommend sticking around here a little bit longer. Okay, say you want to make text stickers for every single weekday within a month. This is one of my favorite ways to use these stickers, so I definitely want to show you this, but there is kind of a trick to it. I'll be weirdly starting mine from May 16 because I'm going to be traveling for the first half of the month that I'm making these stickers for, so I only need them from May 16. And in order to make cutting these faster and a little bit easier, instead of adding the offset that follows the shape of the text, I'm going to add a rectangular one instead. So I've gone to the Shapes panel and I've chosen the sharp pointy square. I've moved it to where the text is, and on the Layers panel dropped it behind that one so that I can see the text on top. And I'm resizing it to just fit that text inside. If Design Space won't let you make it anything but a square, up the top here where the width and height measurements are, there's a lock in the middle. Click that and it will let you change the proportions. I want to make sure my text is perfectly aligned in the middle of this square rectangle thing, so I'm going up to Align here and choosing Center, so it will do that for me. And just like the offsets earlier, I'm changing the material colors to white, partly because that is the color that I'll be working with the paper, but also because it tells the Cricut that this will be the same material as the other headers. If you chose different colors, it would assume that was going to be a separate piece of paper, and it would arrange your project in that way when you go to make it. I've made duplicates of these rectangles so I can add extra text onto each of them. You can duplicate in Design Space by holding down Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC and dragging, but I actually don't recommend that you do because sometimes it duplicates copies that you didn't know about and they can mess up your final project. I'm actually going to do that here by accident, so you'll get to see what that looks like. So I recommend instead using the Duplicate button at the top of the Layers panel. It's above our May 18 fine foil layer at the top there. It looks like some pages with a plus. I'm going to duplicate enough of these rectangles and text boxes to get me through the rest of the month. And clearly I wasn't thinking straight when I started this because I don't actually want May 16, May 17. I want Saturday 16, Sunday 17. Don't worry, I will realize that at some point and I'll fix it. If you're not happy with how your text is looking, you can go into the edit function again and you can move the spacing around. You can also divide this into individual letters and move them around individually if you want, but I just didn't feel like getting that in the weeds with it, so I just made my letter spacing a little closer to make it fit here for May 20. Let's just continue this process until I have enough to get me through to the 31st of May. You absolutely can duplicate several things at once, so I just selected a whole week's worth and duplicated those to get me going for my second week here. Now I just need to change the dates and change the text altogether, but I haven't realized that yet. Okay, now let's make it the weekday abbreviations. I'm going to show you how important the attach tool is here. So all of my headings are attached to their backgrounds, but they're not attached to anything else. When I tell it to make the project, it'll make you save it before you can continue. You see how all of these weekdays are now mixed around in some kind of random order? Actually, let me tell it A4 paper really quickly because that's what I'll be using. That's because the Cricut doesn't know that they need to be next to each other, so you need to use the attach tool to tell it, I want these things to stay together. That would be too hard to put in the journal for my liking, so let's go back to the canvas. I'm going to select all of these. I'm actually going to rearrange them to be a bit more efficient because right now I just have them in a typical week. I'm going to make them a bit smaller as well so they fit really nicely. I've got 1.25 centimeters tall now. I want a bit shorter than that. I want the individual stickers to be really small. So this is 1.11 centimeters tall. I think that's pretty good. I have 16 weekday headers here that I need to arrange in order. So I'm just going to do 4 columns of 4 titles. And I'm not going to try and make this part very precise because I can use the Cricut tools to tidy it up for me. So once I have them all relatively in place, I'll select just the top row, go up to the align tool along the top there, and then center those, the next row, center those, so on and so forth. And then I'll do the same thing vertically. Now I've got a nice grid of all of these, I'm going to select them all and attach them to each other. And then when we hit make and we go forward to what our mat's going to look like, you'll see even before I tell it A4, but I'm going to tell it A4 because that's what I'll be using, we now have all of those headings in the same order they are on our canvas, and that's what I want. So fantastic. I'm not ready to make it yet though. So that's text. What if you want to include some graphics? This little mermaid tail was actually one of the free graphics from within Cricut Design Space. I'm going to give it a title, mermaid fin, and then I'm just going to select all of my other headings and put them in a group. This doesn't affect where they are on the mat when you go to make your project. It just cleans up your layer panel a little bit. That mermaid tail was the only asset that I liked from Cricut Design Space that was free, so I've sourced the rest of these from Canva. Little disclaimer, while I don't have a Cricut Access subscription, I do have a Canva Pro subscription. So let's hit upload over here on this left side and upload our first image. When you're choosing images to work with the foil tool, they really need to be black and white. They're just going to do the outlines just like we did with the text. When you upload it, you're going to choose single layer and click continue. We don't need to do anything on this screen, we can just click upload. It might take a while if your files are pretty big. Like this one, those bubbles are way too big. I'm going to bring them down to 4 centimeters tall. If you're not sure how big to make your stickers, I recommend measuring some of your favorite stickers that you already have in your journal. Just like we did with text, we need to tell the Cricut we want this to be in foil. I'm choosing medium foil for this one, and also just like some of our text, we need to add an offset so we can tell the Cricut that's where we want it to cut. I was tossing up with this one. You see how the blue lines are in the inside of the bubbles as well as on the outsides? If you make your offset bigger, you can set it up so that the entire inside would be filled. I wasn't sure if I wanted these ones solid or not. I ended up letting them be hollow, so whatever is behind them will show through. There'll be those little gaps inside the bubbles, you know? You can also see there are some gaps between some of the bubbles in this sticker, so they'll cut separately. That's pretty good for me, actually. I'm going to duplicate this a couple of times so I've got more bubbles to work with. Now let's upload our next one. This is a little school of fish swimming. Because these fish are solid black, I'm going to make them a single layer again. When I upload them, it's just going to foil the outside edges. These will also be individual stickers the way I'm setting them up, but I like that. I want to be able to place these fish wherever I want them on the page, not relative to each other. However, because they are all on the single layer, they are just one image, it's going to act as though they're attached to each other the way we did with our weekday titles, so I'll be able to move them around as a unit, but it will cut them all individually. Also, Cricut Design Space looks at what you're uploading and tries to offer you similar graphics. I'm just ignoring them because all of those ones are not free. So I've set them to bold foil, now I need to add an offset. And I want these ones pretty tight. See how this one is just the blue line around the outside of the fish? It's not going to cut the inside of these ones the same way it's going to do with the bubbles. They'll just be white paper on the inside with a gold edge. My offset and my fish foil have been attached, and I'm going to duplicate those as well and make just a smaller version. It never hurts to have lots of tiny stickers. If you get the idea, you can skip ahead, but if you want to see the other graphics I'm including, you can stick around. This mermaid ended up being my absolute favorite, but she took a really long time to foil because she has so much detail. This one's actually a really interesting example for the offset, so I actually do recommend you stick around for this one. I'm making her 10 centimeters tall. Just going to move her down here so she's a bit easier to see. I'll change her to foil, and I'm going to go with fine because she does have so much detail going on here. But she also has some empty space, so when we go to the offset, you'll see that it looks a little bit wrong. Like we don't want the machine to cut out her shoulder. I'm going to make my offset larger this time so it encompasses those bubbles. I want those to cut with her, but I didn't want to make it so big it filled in her shoulder because then we would have had heaps of white space around the outside of her. So we'll use the contour tool. Select the offset layer and hit contour in the bottom right corner. And here you can tell it which little slices you want it to cut. I'm going to hit hide all contours and that will make it just do all the way around the outside. This is really handy for text sometimes too if it wants to cut out the center of an O or something and you don't want it to do that. I've just got a couple more graphics to add. This one is a treasure chest. I actually have two treasure chests, but this one's open and the other one is closed. I'm going to give it the exact same treatment as all of our other graphics. I'll set it to foil. I'll give it an offset. This offset also needs to use the contour tool. Then I'm going to attach those layers together and add my other treasure chest design as well. And just in case, I'm going to add a seaweed sticker as well. I think this one will be really handy for smaller spaces that just need something. So I'll do a few seaweed pieces, and I've also duplicated some of my treasure chests too. For extra versatility, I'm also going to horizontally flip a couple of these guys too. Now we're getting to the good part. We're nearly ready to make this. I've clicked make and it's going to take me to my mat here. I'm going to change it to A4 and see if everything fits on one page. And no, it doesn't. Currently I've got 2 pages. That's a little frustrating. Okay. I definitely only want to do one A4 page, so I'm going to go back to the drawing board here and just resize things a little bit, move them around a bit, maybe remove a couple of things and see if I can fit everything just onto one page. The biggest individual element is my school of fish, so I'm going to start by making that a little bit smaller. This is a bit of a process of back and forth, so making a tweak and then hitting make again and seeing what happens. I'm going to have to do a few rounds of this, so just bear with me. It's the most frustrating when it's just one sticker like this. It's just driving me crazy. There we go, we did it. It all fits on one page now. So let's talk about this screen. This mock-up of your mat here is a kind of Cricut serving suggestion of where everything should be placed based on what it thinks is the most space economical. But you can move things around here. You can just click and drag. You can't resize anything, but you can shift around where things are. I've actually just decided to alter my May heading because I'm a glutton for punishment. But while we do that, I thought I'd tell you. Soon we're going to have to put some paper on a Cricut mat and then put some foil over the top of that and attach the paper to the foil. Cricut has you do this with some tape, and the foiling process doesn't work so well when it has to go through the tape as well as the foil to transfer. So I like to keep things a little bit away from the edge of the A4 paper if I can, just so I don't run into that kind of tape overlapping with foil issue. And yes, I did decide I wanted my May heading to say Mermay, and now it does. So we can proceed. We're going to be loading our project on a Cricut mat, which is a little bit sticky to hold your paper. We're going to have A4 paper in my case. You might have something else depending where you are in the world. Everything still fits on a single A4 page, which makes me really happy, but I'm just going to move things a touch away from the edges. I promise this whole thing about tape to hold the foil in place is going to make sense in a minute once we get out of Design Space and I show you the actual mat and everything, but for now I'm just going to move everything here so that I've got a little bit of a border around the outside, wherever possible. It's not always super possible, but wherever I can. When you're happy with your placement, you can hit continue. Of course, it is always a good idea to make sure your Cricut is turned on and that you're connected to it over Bluetooth. Do recommend that you do that. Next, it'll take us to the material page where you tell the Cricut what you're using to make this project. This one's kind of tricky in our case because everything we tell it here it's going to apply to both the foil and also to cutting later. I typically go for copy paper 90 GSM and I choose more pressure. It does kind of cut all the way through the paper a little bit sometimes, but I think that's okay. Next up, we need to look at this load tools and material. Do not look at the part that I've just highlighted. That has messed me up before. For some reason, my eye goes there. You just want to look at this row here. So we don't need a tool in clamp A, but we do need to load the fine tip into clamp B. So let's go to the Cricut, finally. The Cricut actually has this handy little storage spot here on the left side on the Explore 3 that can hold your transfer tool while you're not using it, and the 3 little attachments on this magnet too, although mine have moved around a little bit, they're not in perfect order. It's an extremely handy spot to store this stuff when you're not using it, so I just wanted to let you know that was there in case you wanted to also store your foil tips there, but you don't have to if you don't want to. Cricut wants us to start with the fine tip, which is the one that just has one little line on it. For the basis of comparison, the others have different numbers of lines. So this one has 2, this is the medium tip, and the one that's the bold tip has 3 lines on it, so you can tell them apart really easily. I believe the Joy kit only comes with 1, and that's the medium tip. You just pop the tip in the top here and it magnetizes into place, and then we'll add it to the Cricut. So clamp B here, we need to pull this little flap to open it. You can lift out the blade, pop in your transfer tool and close it back up, and it's as simple as that. It's very easy, and you can put your blade in here for safekeeping. Next, we want to load up our mat, and if you look at my mat, you'll see it's got some gold foil stuck to it from some of my misadventures experimenting with this stuff previously. I always like to make sure I have my sticker paper the right way up before I stick it to my mat because I've had some issues there in the past too. I've made some choices, my friends, some choices indeed. And I like to get completely above my mat to stick my paper down. It just helps me to line things up better. Now we need to bring in our foil transfer sheets, and I prefer to use these big 12 by 12 inch ones. I just find it a lot easier than the little 4 by 6 ones that come with the transfer kit. I'm sure those are great for card making and stuff, but for this purpose, they're kind of just annoying actually. And we're going to cover the paper completely with the foil. But be warned, this foil is very, very delicate, and anything sticky near it, it will stick to, and it will rip the gold foil off the underside of it. So you have to be really careful with it around sticky Cricut mats like this. Ask me how I know. I'm going to go ahead and trim off the excess on the left side here, and I am going to keep this for future potential projects if I'm doing something that I don't need a whole page for. Again, it is really flimsy stuff, so it moves around very easily. It can be a little tricky to stabilize. And we're going to use these strips of tape that come with the foil in order to adhere it to the mat or to the sticker paper. I've heard people say before that you shouldn't adhere the foil to the mat. I don't see what the problem is. I've done it and it doesn't seem to make too much of a difference, so I say stick it to the mat if you like. As long as the foil is fairly taut and as flat as you can possibly make it, I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference. So I like to start at the top and then try to really smooth everything out, and as I add each one of these strips of tape, it's going to sort of statically adhere itself to the foil first, and then you can use that tension to pull it a little bit taut in whichever direction you're going and stretch it out a little bit before you stick it down. That's going to help you get it really nice and flat. It's never going to be perfectly flat, but as flat as you can get it is the way to go. And here we have our foil over the top of our sticker paper. As you bend it around, you'll see it kind of moving and flexing. That is completely normal, nothing to worry about. Now we get to do the really exciting part, which is loading it into the machine. It's going to measure the mat to make sure that it does in fact have enough material to make whatever the project is that you've designed. And when it's satisfied with your mat, it will tell you you can press start, which is the little play button, and then we get to start our foiling. Depending on how much you have to foil and how intricate your designs are, this can take a pretty long time. My little mermaid in the top left corner took probably 20 minutes to foil just on her own. It doesn't give you any kind of time estimate when it starts, you kind of just have to work that out yourself, but you can leave it unattended and just go and get yourself a cup of tea or something, but I find it quite mesmerizing to watch. Now we've done all of the fine foil transferring, we need to do the next step. It says here remove used gold foil. I am not going to do that. Don't do that if you've got all of these things on one project and you still need to do gold foil. But we will add the medium tip into the transfer tool instead of the fine tip for the next step. Do not unload the mat. This is really important. Don't take the mat out or the machine will not know where you're up to and you'll have to start everything again. I actually made that mistake the first time I used the foil transfer tool, so don't be like me. I've grabbed the tip with 2 lines on it because that is the medium one, and I'm just going to pop out the previous one. You just press that little nub at the top of the tool here and it will eject that for you. We'll take that out, we'll add in the new one, the medium, and pop it back into clamp B. Also, don't leave your unused tips on the Cricut. I did that once too and it also ruined my project. We can press play for the next part and now it's going to foil all of our medium elements. Yes, if you're doing this for a while, the noises do get a little bit frustrating, but it's worth it for the stickers in the end, I promise you. Now that all of our medium elements have been foiled, guess what the next step is? It's definitely not to remove the gold foil. I don't like that it tells you that. You should only do that if you have to add like a different foil color or something. No, we're just going to change the tip from the medium one to the bold one this time. And once again, you are not going to unload your mat. You're going to leave it right there where it is and just change the tip in the transfer tool before you press go again. I actually didn't have very many bold elements on here. I just had the mermaid tail from Cricut Accesses stuff and my mermaid title, so that part didn't take me very long at all compared to the rest. Next up, we're going to cut the stickers, so we need to take off the foil, but once again, do not unload the mat. I can't say it with enough emphasis. Do not unload the mat or you will confuse your Cricut and you'll have to start everything again because it won't know where to cut. It is very awkward, but you do have to just peel up all of that tape and take off the foil while it's still in the machine. The sticker paper has to stay exactly where it already is. It can be done. So I've got my foil out of the way now, but we need to cut next. So we need to take out the transfer tool and put back the blade into clamp B. I'm just going to add all of my foil transfer tips to my magnet while I'm here so I know where they are the next time I want to use them. My blade was safely stored here while we did all of this, so it was very easy to put my hands on. And the transfer attachment can go back in that same spot too. Now we just click go and it's going to cut all of our stickers out for us. Like with any cutting project, the more intricate the edges are, the longer the cut is going to take. So these little headings obviously are the quickest part, and you can see there it cut that one twice. Remember what I said about the duplicate tool and how if you use the option drag version, you don't always know that something has been duplicated? Some of my May headings from my first time around are still there, and they were foiled twice and cut twice. Now that the cut is finished, we can finally remove the mat from the machine, and this is how we're looking, but we have to get it off the mat yet, and that can sometimes be tricky too. This is my used up foil, and this is the project before we take it off the mat. It's so satisfying to see them side by side. I'm so happy with how this mermaid turned out, and let me just remind you, she was fine foil. This was bold foil, and so was my mermaid heading down here, and they are the least clean of the transfers. So that's why I don't recommend the bold foil tool, but these ones that were fine and medium, this treasure chest was medium, they look great. So I'm just gonna stick to them from now on. Also, These are so annoying, aren't they? But I'm just going to fix them with a white paint marker when I set up the journal, so let's not worry about that. But when we take this off, those are probably not going to be kiss cut, where you just have the sticker layer cut and the underside is still intact. Those are probably going to be more like a die cut where it's cut all the way through. I so wish Cricut Design Space would let you choose a different cutting pressure versus foiling pressure for a project like this, but because you only get to make one choice, I decided my priority is a really clean transfer of the foil rather than the cut. I don't care as much about the cut in this case because I'm not selling the sticker sheet or anything like that. Next time I try a project like this, I might try it with default pressure instead and see if that makes a difference, because while all of my stickers have cut accurately, some of them have cut further through the paper than I wanted them to, so that's why I'm having so much trouble removing the sticker paper from the mat. And I do recommend for this, even if you have an easy removal project ahead of you, rolling the mat away from the paper on a flat surface is way more effective than peeling the sticker paper up from the mat. It'll really help you to keep your sticker paper from curling, which can be a little bit annoying. Not the end of the world, but just a little bit annoying. I have to accept that those two Wednesdays have cut all the way through though, and just let those ones be die cut because that is the only way to proceed. But here's a look at my finished stickers. I love the gold reflection. I think most of them have been a really nice, clean transfer. I love the way they look with the font I chose. I think that was a really good pairing. Now, if I can just work out how to not make these halfway die cut, I'll be very, very happy. Here's a little look at these same stickers in action for my May journal theme. I love the way they turned out. I think they were perfect for the theme, but I won't be messing around with that bold foil tip anymore because it just doesn't do as good a job as the other two. So that's my recommendation. Steer clear of bold. All of the titles also turned out really nice for all of my pages, and having stickers already made for my weeklies like this just speeds up the setup process so much, although they did take quite some time to make, so maybe it's a trade-off. I hope you're now feeling confident to go forth and make some foil stickers for yourself, and if you'd like to see more of how these ones turned out in my May journal, here is a link to that video so you can watch it up next. Or if you're in the mood for another Cricut tutorial, here's a video about how I make book cover stickers for my reading journal.